AllChat.
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 1, 2, AllChat.
All
AllChat, baby.
1, 2, 3, 4. AllChat.
AllChat.
Alright, that should be good. All right, welcome to episode 11. Today we are joined by Mike as our guest. Yeah, I sent the links if you want to tweet those out.
Yeah, no problem at
Both of
all.
y'all, yeah. Yeah.
No problemo.
Kendall, did you say you had an art you wanted to show us? I guess we can start off with
Oh.
whatever that.
Oh yeah, so yesterday me and Dean were painting a lot, and I drew this really cool eye that is supposed to look crazy far away. I think it looks better in person, honestly.
Oh, that's trippy though. I like that. Here, can we get it a little closer up?
Yeah, I'll even do a close up one, part 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. Yeah, with a little distance.
But in person, it looks like an owl's eye far away.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is pretty dope. So I'll have to hang this up somewhere cool, like at the end of a hallway or something.
Yeah.
God, I wish I had that kind of artistic talent.
Dude, there's no such thing as talent, dude. It's just practice, legit. Like, you should see the shit I started drawing. Like, when I first started, it was god awful.
I agree with you to an extent, but sometimes I I don't know, Mike. I make I guess I make a little bit of music. I do some just on production. I guess make beats. Dude, I listened to some of my old stuff when I first started. I'm like, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel about some of my I made a mixtape 6 months ago, and when I dropped it, people liked it, but when I listened to it, I hated it until a few months ago. I listened.
That's
to
how
it.
it goes.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Like the moment you finish something and you've I've listened to this so many times, and then you get it out in the world and you're like, I don't want to hear this ever again. But then if you go back, you're like, this is better than I thought.
Exactly.
Wait, you should send me your mixtape. I'd love to listen to that.
Oh, I deleted it from.
You deleted it? What were you doing? Were you producing, rapping? What were you doing for it?
I was, so there's where I was going to school in Richmond, there was a bunch of producers who I'd freestyle and stuff out in my apartment, and they'd be like, let me send you something, see what you can do with it. So after over maybe 8 months just of beats I collected, I made a little tape that really was not that bad, but I'm just so self-conscious that I would take this away from the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, just mostly rapping, kind of.
I mean, that's how it goes. Anytime I finish a piece, I hate it until a few months later, and I'll look at it and be like, "That's pretty good."
Exactly.
What was what style of production did you rap over?
Mostly not soul sample. Pretty basic samples, loops, but I appreciate soul samples, so people would send me kind of Alchemist, more Griselda type beats and stuff that I would go over. I rap more in the style of a Earl Sweatshirt or something like that. So.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't even know what. I don't know. I kind of do whatever. I jump around with what I make. I've been listening to this a lot this week. Do you like Injury Reserve?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
Geez, they're amazing. They're amazing.
Oh, I got the fucking. I've been sad this week because I've been re-listening to their stuff, and it just makes me sad about Grogs.
Oh yeah, man.
He passed away, right? That's what happened to him?
Yeah, he died this summer.
Unfortunately. Dude,
that's right.
This year's been a hell for deaths of people I really love. I couldn't.
Were you real sad about Alex Trebek?
You heard about Doom, right?
Yeah.
That dude's kind of an institution. I kind of was. Doom's death, really, it bothered me to know that he died in October and we just found out.
Yeah.
That kind of sad.
Kind of on brand though.
Exactly. He's the fucking villain. Of course, he wouldn't tell anybody until the last day of 2020.
Yeah. Did they release what happened, or is it unknown?
I don't think his wife is giving that information out.
Yeah.
I hope it's not COVID. If it's COVID, then I'm gonna stab somebody or something.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
feel like if it's COVID, they'd probably say it though. I don't know. Like I kind of feel the same way. Like I'm super fine with not know like with like uh Doom or Grogs or whatever. Like I'm super fine not knowing how if it just ends up that way where we don't know. But like I feel like if it was like a car accident or COVID or something, like they'd probably release that. And I wonder. I don't know though.
Yeah, who knows if it is COVID. I mean, I lost two family members this year to COVID, like
Oh shit, man, I'm
alone. You know what
sorry.
I mean?
Hmm.
Oh no, it's like it, but it was just when you look at the numbers right now, we're at I think 350,000, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
A
Death
day
in like 9
or
months,
deaths? Oh,
yeah,
deaths.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is which is like
Bonkers.
it's more deaths than the Vietnam and Korean wars combined. You know what I mean?
Oh my, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's bonkers how many people have died of this thing. We just let it run through us. And I saw
yeah.
fucking. Oh, you go.
Oh no,
It
it's
is.
just like I knew shit was gonna get weird after like back in March. I think the Texas deputy governor or something said like, yeah, you guys are just gonna have to die as like a sacrifice to
For
the
the economy.
economy. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is gonna get like really weird, and it's just getting worse and worse, and they don't really seem to be able to adapt in any way to this crisis because I mean, we're at like the tail end of like 40 or 50 years of neoliberal free market policy. So if it's they're leaving it all in the hands of the private sector, and the private sector does not know what the fuck it's doing right now.
No, they don't give a shit.
They don't really care. Yeah, as long as like the Federal Reserve prints more money for them to do stock buybacks and keep their revenue up, they're fine. You know what I mean? As long as I don't know, enough of their workforce survives and they're able to keep their dividends.
What
Yeah.
exactly is neoliberalism again? Isn't that just like all about like free market capitalism kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of it's the direction we went kind of in the 70s, right? Like we had the New Deal and the Great Plan programs and stuff of the 60s, and then I believe it was Jimmy Carter's Commerce Secretary in 78 was like he gave a speech and was talking about how America was becoming a social democracy and we have to stop that. You know what I mean? We have to stop that before it happens.
Why?
So
Because it leads to communism or something?
yeah, and I mean, and it just limits what the private sector can feasibly do. You know what I mean? Like you look at your European social democracies when this crisis hit, like for instance in Germany, they were able to give people checks every month, so they were able to survive, and the government banks were able to challenge private banks to make sure they couldn't do predatory lending and things like that. That's America is built on a level of like capitalist domination that had to be maintained, and a social democracy would have threatened that. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
kind of when neoliberal policy sort of started to hit its swing. You know what I mean? Kind of deregulation. Yeah, put it all in the hands of the market. Let the market have control over the infrastructure and institutions and stuff. You
It's
know, that's freedom. Whatever they say.
It's freedom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and neoliberalism's like super tied into like the grasp we have on like the third world and like our exploitation of them as well. So
Oh
like
yeah.
I was in a disasters and hazards sociology class and it's all about like I mean I guess it tied into like the basically neoliberalism's creation of disasters and also like the creation of disaster vulnerability. So like our economic ties to like I guess like Haiti, just the majority of the third world, like for first world and like developed nation or I guess developed nations to exist, like us, Japan, and like other countries, we have to exploit smaller countries for their resources, their labor, and all of that. And if there's not someone below you, you can't be above. Basically, that's like super tied into the
Okay.
system.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And it's also that fact is also true with social democracies, which is pretty much all our entire consumer economy is built off of these cheap goods we get from the global south, and to get them takes a lot of trickery. Usually with the IMF and World Bank, they'll use they'll use loans to trap countries in situations where they have to sell their resources at a lower price or let Western companies in to, expropriate resources and stuff like that, just to have the ability to they're pretty much outsourcing their exploitation in a way. You know what I mean? They
Definitely.
since production costs can again get that much lower here, they had to go somewhere else to make that happen, and that happens in the global south. That's a big reason why manufacturing left the U.S. in the 70s was because of neoliberalism. Pretty much, these corporations figured that, all right, we have in the U.S. we have to deal with these unions, we have to deal with workers' rights, but in China we can just pay these people like a nickel or some shit, and they'll make 5 million shoes for us. You know what I mean? So they moved out there, they moved all manufacturing out there, and decimated the
That's still the
livelihood.
way it is,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I
Technically.
mean, yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now is like the ramifications of that outsourcing and the ramifications of neoliberalism. And the point we're at right now is, well, profits can't get any higher really, and production costs can't get any lower, right? Like the next step is full automation, which would completely eliminate like labor costs and shit. But the real issue that we're coming up to now is you can make things as cheap as possible, and that's fine, and it's going to make you a lot of money for a while, but someone has to buy your stuff, you know what I mean? So if the US is a consumer economy, then people need to have money to buy the cheap goods that these capitalists are producing, and that's really what this check situation is about, right? I think there's a presumption that it's to keep people from going homeless or be able to feed themselves. It really isn't. It's because like our retail sector is dying, and our like 70% of our consumer economy is based on retail. So they need people to start buying things again. You know
But
what I
that's
mean?
why I don't understand why they wouldn't give people more checks to like if they care about the economy, they'd give people money to spend. Like, cause like especially when they're complaining about like, oh, what about the $2,000 that people don't need? It's like, well, then they'll probably buy shit. They'll buy a PS5
Exactly.
or some shit, you know?
Mhm.
Like if
And
they don't need the $2,000, like
yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what some people are starting to realize. I think we're at that point where like socialism is such a scary word, and the idea of giving people free money, quote unquote, is such a scary word that there's like this resistance to it. But the truth of the matter is, whichever way you spin it, if they want to maintain capitalism in any kind of significant way here, they're gonna have to give people money to buy shit eventually. Like a UBI is gonna have to be replaced.
Eventually.
Nobody makes enough money to just go out and buy a TV or a toaster or whatever. Wages have been stagnant here since 78. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
people have to pay their bills and rent goes up every year, but nobody has a disposable income, and that's the only thing that makes the American market valuable right now is that disposable income. So that's what we're
Oh
seeing.
yeah.
Like I even saw like Lindsey Graham saying like, "Hey man, $2,000 isn't socialism." You know what I mean? Like we should think about it, and that's really telling. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever hear that from a Republican saying, "Let's give people money," and that kind of shows that America is probably on its last legs as a like superpower, if that's what it's talking about.
We
Yeah, but
have
like
such potential to be a superpower too. I feel like
I
I
mean,
love Kyo's stance on it. At least if we just like pulled away from the outside world for a while and just worked on our own problems, we could really step out as number one again
yeah,
with some
we
hard
we
work.
we were number one for a while, right? Like the problem is, at least in terms of like growth within a capitalist model, it's not built on sustainability, it's built on exponential growth. And logically, to get exponential growth, you have to keep cutting down on production costs so that profits go up. And you hit a wall when you're in a first world country like the US, where workers have a minimum wage, this, that, and the third. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So what kind of happened was we were the number one power in the world for a while. You know what I mean? And during the 60s, we had a pretty robust health care, like welfare state that had people have like enough money to go to school and buy a house and really be involved in the economy, and the top marginal tax rate, like above 300,000, was 91%. So there's tax revenue coming in. The money was worth something. Like shit was good. And then the issue is, again, if you're building your system on profit, then at some point the capitalists are gonna go, I want more money like next year, and how can I make that happen? And that's how they cut back on a lot of these regulations. That's how they do the union busting, and they cut down on the minimum wage and all this, which has led to the decline of our economy. You know what I mean? Like there is no stability because a lot of the wealth is just kind of being funneled upwards to like the top 1%. I think Jeff Bezos is close to being worth $300 billion right now.
Is it
Oh,
300 now?
I found a website today to show you guys. Someone made like a chart on a website about like the disparity of wealth in our country.
Mhm.
It's fucked.
It was so depressing looking at that.
Basically, you just hold shift and scroll to scroll right, and it'll show you
Oh, I think I saw this. Yeah, the interactable thing. Yeah.
the interactable thing. I'll put it here in our little Discord chat.
Yeah, I can link it in Twitch chat too.
Yeah, it's
It is insane. Like the top 400 richest people have so much money compared to the median U.S. household income.
It doesn't like, but at some point, like, what does it mean to be
I know,
like? What does that money mean anymore?
right. But
so
I think
it's
as I always like to say, they're literally just playing cookie clicker. That's
Yeah.
what it's gone to. The billionaires are just playing cookie clicker now, and they just wanted to get bigger and bigger. Because like,
Dude, that's-
what's the difference between 100 billion and 200 billion? Like, I don't
It's
see
a-
any way that can change your life. I guess maybe your Mars, you're gonna get to Mars a little faster now, so you can get off of the dying Earth.
Jeff. Okay, so the 400 richest Americans own 3.5 trillion, which is more than the bottom 60% of Americans. The bottom 60%. I'm in there for sure.
Like, think about what $1 million would do for any. Think about what
Yeah,
$10,000 would do for any of us. Like,
dude, I'd be hooked up. Go get
No more.
myself a house.
Scale. A lot of people don't appreciate the scale of like what $1 billion is, which is like $100 million 10
Yeah.
times. And then Jeff Bezos has 300 of those. You know what I mean? Like yeah. At a certain point, like you said, it is cookie clicker. Like there is no point to this shit anymore. But I think that's one of the things that Marx talks about, like, which is like an issue, which is like this money is just a value of exchange, right? Like you use it to get other stuff, you know. But this system is built in such a way where it incentivizes more and more accumulation of this shit that really at a certain point isn't worth anything, you know. And if it's all in the hands of one person, then there really is no economy to be had. You know what I mean? Like the game is pretty much over. And I was looking at a chart, and it was talking about how we have worse inequality here than they had during the French Revolution. You know
yeah,
what
I
I
saw
mean?
that too. Yeah.
Like
That's
it's
true. We
I
need
mean,
to pick up
I
some
guess
tips from the French, honestly.
What happens?
'cause-
Jeff Bezos is just going to become a feudal lord, right? Like, that's where we're
Yeah.
going. Like, we're all just going to
I
be
mean-
like under Jeff Bezos. Like everyone's
Yeah.
just going to work for Amazon at some point. Like,
What was it called? Your because like who serves a feudal lord again? It's the
vassals. Is that what?
vassals. We'd all be no, it's below vassals too.
the serfs.
The serfs were
yeah.
serfs.
Yeah, we'd all be serfs. Yeah, I guess the vassals would be like the government at that point.
Be an Amazon serf for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
here.
we're Amazon. We'd be Amazon
Give it
serfs,
10
and then
years.
like Lindsey Graham's he's a vassal.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's a lord. He's a noble.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. A lot of those nerds on Twitter who defend Elon Musk all the time think they're gonna be like they're gonna be one of his.
People
nobles.
think he's really smart.
The dude.
It's amazing. Right? It's amazing.
He just
The
has a
dude's
lot
good
of
at
money.
buying
and he-
other people's good ideas. That's what he's smart.
Yeah.
He's smart at seeing something that's like has potential.
He's not a super genius.
He bought Tesla before Tesla got big. I don't know if he bought
Yeah.
SpaceX or whatever, but he like didn't. What did he do for Pay? I think he just did like a little bit of web design for PayPal. Like he didn't do
did
anything
web
like
design, yeah.
big brain for PayPal.
Yeah, but people think he's like, a
Super
modern
genius.
genius.
Well, I think he's
Yeah.
trying to, he wants to frame himself like Tony Stark or some shit.
Yeah, that's what he's going for. Like, remember when he was selling flamethrowers? Like this kind of shit he was pulling.
Yeah, he's
Not gonna lie,
just
I like that he did that, but
he's he has like the brain of a 13-year-old Reddit shit poster, but like the bag of somebody whose parents have blood emeralds. You know what I mean? So,
Literally though, because
So blood diamonds, dude.
he has South African apartheid money.
yeah, exactly. So it's like he's really the worst combination of like human beings. Like you giving him resources is a bad idea, but he has them, which means he can make all his stupid ideas happen in reality. When he went up on that stage and like threw the ball through the car window or whatever, I was
Throws the
like,
ball there, and it just shatters the Cybertruck.
I
I
was
didn't see
watching
that.
I was watching that with my mom, and she was just like, "Look at this fucking idiot! Like, who gave this guy money? Like, what's going on?" Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is like literally the shit. Like, if I was 13, then I'd want to be doing this shit. I want to go to space. I want to build a car that looks like it's from fucking Altered Carbon or some shit.
Let's send a car to space.
Oh yeah, let's
lot of
put a
this,
car
like-
in space.
oh yeah, he
Was that Kyle?
Yeah.
No,
Was
I mean,
that
a
Kai?
big part of why like Elon Musk and I mean, you could say the same thing about like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates to a lesser extent, Jeff Bezos not so much, but or I mean, yeah, kind of actually, is that like they have to like be flashy and like do all those like weird wonky things because it like reinforces the idea of like the meritocracy that exists in the US where like if you work really hard and you have good ideas, you'll make it big and make it rich. And so like if like by these people like I mean yeah, like Elon Musk is kick ass at buying other engineers. Like he doesn't engineer anything for Tesla or for SpaceX. He like buys people who do that. But he has to keep this like this like facade up just so that like other people see it and are like, wow, like if I work really hard, one day I can be just like him. I can be just as smart as him and be just as good of an engineer. But like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
That's why they're all going to bat for him on Twitter, man. And Jeff, like it's so funny when anyone like there's so many people willing to go to bat for why like billionaires deserve tax cuts. Or like why
insane.
like the whole tax loophole where they're like, well, like, or when it's like billionaires don't pay taxes, and they're like, yeah, because of the loophole, and that's great.
Yeah.
And they try to like validate that shit.
Well, it's because I saw somebody say something once like we defend billionaires because a lot of Americans think they're going to be billionaires one day.
100%. It's that
Entirely.
It's the push of the American dream. Like it can like, oh my god, I don't know if I know. Wait, who?
I don't want to get taxed when I'm a billionaire.
Did anyone else watch like the fucking Kelly Loeffler Warnock debate?
No.
I did not see this.
That shit was so tough. That woman's a robot. I really hope she doesn't fucking win. It's gonna be so sad if she wins that. But she just like kept talking about because she's like worth like $500 million or some shit. She's like, I'm proof that the American dream can happen, and that's what I want for Georgians. It's like you want Georgians to be fucking poor, and you know it.
I mean that's
Stop lying to him.
the one of the tactics of capitalism really is you have to trick people into believing this lie that you can work towards like great wealth, because if you can't convince them of that, then they're not gonna buy into the system and they might start questioning it. You know what I mean? So from grade school, I remember, what was it? The entrepreneur, like they talk about Rockefeller or Carnegie or shit like that, and they'd be like, hey, he came from such humble beginnings and he worked so hard and then he built this oil empire and blah blah blah. And it's like the reality behind a bunch of this shit is these people come from very affluent backgrounds that go back sometimes hundreds of years, sometimes 100 years, whatever. But they're usually never self-made. And in the rare cases they are, those cases are the ones that are put up to the front as this is possible.
Yeah, those are the advertised ones.
Those are the advertised ones, but what's not advertised is the past, what, millennials and Gen Z own less wealth combined than boomers. Like combined
by a lot. Yeah, the graph is
Wait, really?
It's like I mean, I'm just showing you with my hands, but it's like Gen Z millennials combined and then like boomers, and it's like I think combined like the joke like it's like it's got to be like less than a third maybe of what the other
like millennials, at least the oldest millennials, they're like in their 30s, right? At this point.
and a lot of them can't buy a house. You know what I mean? Like it's shit
How?
like that. I saw like this article that a fireman wrote who was born in where he bought his house in the 60s, and he was like, I bought my house for $3,500 in the 60s. Today it's worth like $200,000. Nobody of my age, like nobody that was my age right now could buy that right now. You know what I mean?
He couldn't buy his own
Nobody
house, I
can buy
bet, right now.
it. No,
Yeah.
like
No.
and that's the issue. There's a very big gap between the American dream and the actual material reality of Americans right now, which is like I know people who had a house in January who are homeless right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were fine. They were working. You know what I mean? They had their job. They weren't doing anything stupid, but as capitalism does, the recession hit and they were fucked, and there's no social safety net for them.
Can't make your
There's
house
only
payments.
yeah, you can't make your house payments, so you have to leave your house. And then nobody mentions it, but they keep talking about this American dream that is again not a reality in people's lives. It's just it's a mythos that they have to keep selling. Otherwise, this whole thing falls apart.
And then rent is like the biggest scam in the world.
It really is.
And literally all it is rich parents. If you have rich parents that can help you put a down payment on a house, then you pay, if you have a job, you pay this less than what rent costs.
Yeah.
And then that money goes towards something. But if you don't have rich parents and you can't afford a down payment on a house, you need to live somewhere and you're going to pay rent, and that money just gets eaten away into a landlord's pocket.
You pay about $1,600 a month for like 2 bedrooms or something. Like that is unsustainable. I don't even make that much money a month.
And I think that's like the key word there is like this shit. What we're seeing right now and why we saw what we saw in June and July is like this shit is unsustainable at this point. Like it's no longer at the point where they can kind of paper over it with different shit. Like I live in an area where the rent goes up $100 every year. You know what I mean? And wages don't move $100 every year. So these people
they stay the same. Yeah,
like I had to leave my apartment complex just because like it was not gonna work anymore. You know what I mean? So
that's insane. Like mine goes up $25 a month, which is like, or sorry, a year, and that's still like a decent amount. But like, oh my god, $100 because you're in the DMV area, right?
Oh yeah, and the way it works over here is, well, you see it, which is like they build a really nice restaurant in the plaza that you live next to, and then you're like, oh shit. And then they build another one, and then the apartment comes at you saying, you know, like the property value has gone up, so rent has to go up so we can keep costs, blah, 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 blah. And they force all the poor people out, and eventually they're going to tear down that apartment complex and build luxury apartments, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, they're still going to be talking about this American dream again that nobody actually sees except for rich kids.
The very lucky. Yeah, the very lucky. Yeah, basically.
It's literally, again, you have to be born into a rich family. You need like parental support to make it the American dream happen. Like,
bro, Mike, you said this has happened last year where you were forced to move?
Oh no, this was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, bro, you were gentrified, dude. Gentrification.
Oh no, it's happening. It's happening everywhere. When I went to school in Richmond, I did a project on where it was happening, like next.
Oh,
what happened?
Lost him.
Oh, I guess he dropped.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back in a second.
That's cool.
Now
He's able to give some insights in the some stuff.
I wonder. I'm curious about like the school system, if it's much different there, because he do you know what the DMV area is? It's like Denver.
No.
Or not Denver. What is it? It's like in the DC area, like by all those.
Oh, okay.
That was the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Well, that's one DMV.
I'm fucking.
What is it? What does it stand for? No, I can't. If he was here,
come back, Mike.
If Mike didn't drop, I would have been. I would know.
Come back, Mike. No. Oh well. I think he'll come back eventually. He must have dropped.
It's like the Washington metro area, DC, Maryland, Virginia. That's what it is. That's what DMV is. DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
But I wonder how different the school system is there. Like if it's like, I actually don't really know like the differences between the school system state to state.
Me neither. Just because that's something I haven't really looked into at all.
Yeah.
One of my fraternity brothers, she went to school in DC. She lived in Virginia, and she always talked about how it was like a pretty nice area,
Okay.
but she lived in like a very like diverse part as well. But like there was definitely like a pretty big wealth gap between like the private schools and like in the district than the public schools.
Yeah. That makes them. Oh yeah, I bet that's because all the. I bet there's so much money that goes to private schools in that area.
Oh, I bet. 110%. Dude, Kyle, I'm kind of bummed that Monopolis was canceled today because I said I was gonna go. I had planned for it all, but I think everyone was just too busy.
That's fine. No one
I'd
was
be super
able to
down
like.
to schedule it for soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought that everyone was in accordance for today, but I don't know if I guess
I mean,
not everyone
I
heard.
for sure was. I for sure was. I know. I mean, Kyle even said he was going, but he's still got like his friends over today. So
Do they live there now?
basically,
Start charging them rent. Be like, I want I want each of you guys to give you $20 if you're coming back. But
you know how fucked up.
that'd be pretty fucked up.
I don't think they like me. Did you drop?
Everything good. You dropped from war still in call. We are still in call. I can
Oh, Jacques just typed in chat. My brain is at like 25% functioning, so I completely forgot about an up risk.
Oh, about Monopoly. Yeah. Are you back, Mike?
Oh shit! Hello.
Yeah.
There you
what's
are.
up?
Oh shit! I think I dropped out. Yeah, I think my internet just dropped out.
Oh, you're all good.
Yeah, no sweat, dude.
Yeah.
All right, shit. What are we on now?
Kaio made a board game, and we were just talking about that for a second.
Hey,
Yeah.
what kind of board game?
Like a grand strategy kind of like 4X kind of game.
Like a civilization type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like pretty inspired by Civilization and like Axis and Allies.
Awesome.
And it was just like a bunch of friends of mine in high school like try to throw something together, and then like it was fun, but I mean in college I decided to like try and make it bigger and better, but I finally made it on like on Tabletop Simulator, and that makes things like a lot easier.
That's awesome. I would have no idea how to make a tabletop game, so that's pretty incredible to make.
Yeah, as of today, I've put like almost 70 hours into it, and I mean now it's done. I think it's done.
I mean,
I
that's
still
70
gotta play it
hours.
again.
70 hours
tabletop.
into making it on the computer. Like he had,
Yeah.
you probably spent like 200, 300 hours on this game like over the years.
I'll give you 300 hours tops.
Dude,
Like, that's definitely what you did.
I've spent a lot of money on it too, unfortunately. And tabletop helps with like I don't have to spend any more money on it. I can just like add more things. Whereas like in real life, whenever I wanted to change things, I'd have to go and source all these little pieces and
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you, what is it like having your like small, like your little level of Twitter fame? How's that?
It doesn't feel. I think people think it feels like somewhat it makes me feel somewhat different, but I really it's just like a number. Like when I
there's
saw
no
it
difference.
yesterday, yeah, like it hit 6666, which was really cool, and I was like, that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
I just like dumb shit like that, but other than that, it's just cool to have like smart people to talk to, because I don't really socialize that much in my personal setting, so it's cool to have smart mutuals to talk to and who can like give me shit about my takes, or say my takes are okay or not, or just have feedback in that sense. But in terms of the fan, I really don't like when my tweets get like a lot of engagement, because it starts to get kind of annoying, to be honest. Yeah, like I think
I haven't
like
gotten there yet.
yeah, it really it's cool for about like 10 minutes, and then you're like, this is just like too much stimuli, and like I don't, why am I getting death threats now? Like this is
Oh yeah.
you
I
know what
bet
I mean?
I bet with your political takes you get some like pretty angry people at you.
I bet.
Oh, it's
Are there a lot of like
the
fascists that come at you?
oh yeah, I think the first tweet that really went off, I got like 100,000 likes, and then like the next morning I woke up and it was just like it was fascists telling me they were gonna come to my house and slit my throat, and
Fuck.
it was just
Fuck,
like,
dude.
but what's funny is like I'd send them a picture with me and my gun, and then they just like block me or something like that. Because I don't think they think. I think they conflate communists with liberals, so they think I'm gun control. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna freak out, but I'm like, no. If you come to my house, I am kind of weird, so I might shoot you.
That interests me, Mike. So
Well-
you call yourself? So you say you stand with by like communism or communist ideas?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Honestly, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you this week is I want to learn more about communism because I know like the bare minimum, and like the motto. I know like the slogan and stuff.
Mhm.
Teach according to his ability, teach according to his needs.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Is it like?
want to give me like a crash course in communism real fast? Nothing like super in depth, but I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, no, I got without a doubt.
Try to sell me on communism. Try that.
Okay, let me try to tell you on. Okay, so we've been talking about capitalism for a little bit coming into this thing, and just kind of like the powerlessness that it puts into people's hearts, you know what I mean? Like there really is no control over their economic system or their conditions at all, you know.
Yeah.
What communism talks about, and I think let me dispel some things real quick about communism.
Some common facts.
Yeah, some common misnomers about the
Misconception.
ideology.
Common American propaganda, maybe.
Yeah.
My
So,
dad needs to hear this. He's terrified of communism.
Kendall's
but
dad is like what?
He's like he's just the conspiracy theorist. He's like the Trump cult conspiracy theorist. I wouldn't say he's far right, but he's like way on Trump.
He's not like QAnon, but he's like the Biden stole the election from Trump type shit.
Yeah, and like Biden's gonna bring communism to America.
Which is so funny, dude. Biden's biggest neoliberal.
I don't know. I just feel like people who are scared of like Americans being scared of communism showing up are kind of or who are scared of communism are it's a little ridiculous, I think. But
I mean, I always get it, right? Because like again, like I grew up in the American school system, and I got all the lessons that everybody else got about the Soviet Union and what they kind of say about it. You know what I mean? And what I really want to get through a lot of people is that first you should not conflate communism with the Soviet Union, even though I think there's a lot of problems with the way people talk about the Soviet Union and a lot of the things they did, right?
100%.
Communism as an ideology is the idea of a stateless society where the means of production are in the hands of the community. It's a communal organization of production and of the resources and property and things of that nature. In communism, there is no private property, so there is no rental property. And one other distinction I like to make is private property is not personal property, right? It's not your house, it's not your car, it's not your things. It's the idea of a factory being owned by one guy, right? Or the idea of a rental property being owned by a landlord.
It's owned by everybody is kind of the argument.
It's owned by the people it's meant to serve, right?
Okay.
So if you live if you live on a property, you are a part owner of that property, right? So the property and the means of production are meant to serve your interest and your needs first and foremost before anything else. In the capitalist model, what property is meant to serve is the profit incentive first and foremost. It has to make somebody money, right? But in a communist model, it is supposed to fulfill people's needs. People need to eat. People need shelter. People need this. People need that, and that's what is fulfilled first. So I think that's the gist of what communism is. Now, I think a lot of the controversy comes in how do we get to that point, right? And that's where a lot of the disagreements come in about the Soviet Union and about Cuba and this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd like to really force home is a lot of the things we learn about these states is manufactured by U.S. intelligence agencies and just U.S. Western institutions as a whole to reinforce capitalist hegemony and capitalist thought. They can't have people thinking that communism is just about people controlling their own conditions, because then people might think that doesn't sound that crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me owning my property instead of my landlord doesn't sound that crazy, or me having control over my workplace doesn't sound that crazy. So to make it sound crazy, they say it is the government imposing their will on you from the outside
Isn't
externally without any of your input. It's a dictatorship, you know? But
isn't the idea of communism like that there is no government, no or no state, I should say?
and that's exactly the point. So what what they do is since in the Soviet Union and in Cuba there are communist parties, they say that those are communist states, which they wouldn't even claim to be communist states. You know what I mean? The Chinese Communist Party would not claim that China is communist at this point.
Yeah.
They call themselves communists because that's the goal. They're trying to work towards that ends, which is a stateless society. Now, the reason why the state exists in those models is because for the means of productions to go back into the hands of the community, they have to be redistributed. You know what I mean? Like, they're not naturally going to go from the hands of the people who own them, which are the rich capitalists, right into the hands of the people. So that's where a vanguard party comes in, which is a representative of the working class as a whole, usually picked through council democracy, and is used to redistribute that land and property back to the people. That's kind of where you get, Lenin giving the poor peasants back all the land that they had to work. You know what I mean? Giving everybody the plot of land out in Russia like that.
Yeah.
That's the point of that. But yeah, communism is not. In communism, there is no state, because the state as it exists right now only exists to manage the interest of the landowner and the wealthy people. That's the reason why it exists.
Yeah.
It exists because there are very what Lenin describes as irreconcilable class differences, right? Which is we understand kind of fundamentally. I think you guys do, from what I've heard, that we're getting fucked over, right? Like that
Yeah.
these people should not have the control they have because they're fucking idiots, and they're trying to screw us over at every turn.
Yeah, like I don't personally know exactly where I land like on like my ideology. I think I'm still figuring that out, but I do know that I'm like probably anti-capitalist now after like
Yeah.
I think I've just been pushed. This year has pushed me so much further left than I was a year ago.
Same here. Like last year, I'd say I was pretty firmly Democrat, and then I moved really. I mean, I'm all about like socialism now. I love socialism.
Yeah, and I think that's that's one of the reasons why the state exists in its capacity right now, or why we saw the kind of response from the police that we saw during the summer, which is pretty much when the lower class starts to get uppity and starts to be like, hey, we want more control over our fucking lives. Then the police, which is a part of the state apparatus, comes out to suppress us, right?
Yeah,
And that's what the state is for.
Yeah, when we ask for more control, they respond with violence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. There's a couple steps, which is like if the idea of a democracy doesn't work, which is pretty much like if people don't buy into the idea that you can vote for one or the other party and that can affect your life, then the next step is beat the shit out of them and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, until they're subservient, I guess.
Exactly. So
I guess, like, and then I think about, like, I don't understand how people get pushed further right, to be honest, or why. But I guess it's
It
probably a
is.
lot of like racism and
It's a lot of gaslighting and
want for control.
propaganda as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think from like I really didn't understand it a couple years back. I was just like, what the fuck is this right wing shit about, right? What is this QAnon shit about? What is this Trump shit about? I really don't get it. This shit seems stupid. But when I started to like really look into why it's happening, it's happening for the same reasons people uh kind of gravitate towards socialism and communism, right? Like if you look at Germany during the 1930s and while the Weimar Republic was collapsing, people went one or two ways. They went farther to the right or farther to the left. Like but it's both populism. It's both people
Yeah.
seeing that their material conditions right now aren't great and they want them to improve.
So,
It's,
like,
it's
yeah.
just a yeah. It's
Oh, I
just
was
two
gonna say.
different ways.
Oh, sorry. We keep talking at the same time. I was just gonna say it seems like the further right is when you use a group of people as a scapegoat versus looking at. I guess on the left, like, yeah, you look at the capital owners as the reasons. For it. But like just
Can
like
be pretty wrong too.
the idea of
So
like
many-
the. I mean, I'd always go for a lot of far right. It always goes back to the Jews, and that's like.
Oh, okay, that's true. It's very Zionist hating.
Yeah, it's
stuff.
But yeah, again, it's a response to poor material conditions and someone promising that I can make your life better. Now, from the right's perspective, there's not a lot of analysis, and it really is more just like pure anger and scapegoatism.
It's a lot of like
and
it's more emotional. I think it's more
you just
emotional.
go off of your emotions and how you feel, not really based on like material fact.
And what's useful about it is it still reinforces kind of the class hierarchies. It just kind of reframes them, right? Like it doesn't say that your life is bad because you don't have control over your life and your bosses do. It's that there's a secret conspiracy with this one group of people who are making your lives hell. So if we get those people out of the way, then your life will be better. You know what I mean? And it's easy to trick people in that way when they don't have a real material conception of their lives. If they don't understand how their institutions work or why they work the way they do, it's easy to fall into conspiracy theories like that, right? Because
me and Kyle had a friend from high school who like moved super far right, and this kid he's a groiper if you know about that movement at all. But like this guy works for Amazon, and I'm like, dude, you literally like the person oppressing you is your fucking boss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but no, it's the Jews.
Yes, because it has to be somebody.
Yeah.
Because it has to be somebody. Because it's not the liberal and conservative like conception of what's happening right now is everything's actually fine. Like nothing's wrong, nothing's good. Like our systems are actually working perfect.
Yeah.
So don't even worry about it, right? But most people know that's bullshit. So
exactly,
you have to blame it on something. Like there has to be some reason for why our lived experience is different than what the establishment is telling us of what is happening. And that's why, like, for the most part, when I talk to right wingers, you're able to agree to a certain degree, like especially on like bankers and like Wall Street and how they fuck shit up and how in 2008 they got away with murder pretty much and all that. It's just it diverts when you get to like the nitty gritty of like why did that happen? And for them it's the Jews, and for us we kind of understand like the historical ramifications of like leaving power in the hands of greedy capitalists as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So it really is about like communicating.
And it was a slow point too. America has, like, over time just slowly made it better and better for corporations, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
we're just full of monopolies again. Like we're back. We're back. We're really just repeating 1920.
Yeah, we're Gilded Age again.
It's really funny. Like just like another pandemic. Oh, we got like unregulated capitalism is going out of hand. Like we just Bezos instead of Rockefeller. But instead of the Spanish flu.
Like rich people made a lot of money this year, actually.
Oh, they made it's ridiculous. You know, Jeff Bezos was. No, I mean, Elon Musk was worth, I think, $3.5 billion at the beginning of the year, and now he's worth
Yeah.
like $100 billion.
Why?
I think so.
Wait, how? I don't understand. Like, what does he do? Like, where is this money? I guess is it just like the
Well,
stock
he
market
owns
or
he owns
Tesla?
Tesla.
But has Tesla increased by what? What's he worth now? Like 90 or something like that?
90 or 100. What was crazy as I looked it up, he at the beginning of the year he got $9.5 billion in corporate subsidies, right? Like in just government subsidies, he got 4.5 billion actually, and I think he's just gotten money throughout the year. And I know that whole Bolivia coup thing was a plot to get him more lithium or cheaper lithium.
Oh.
So he's just kind of had like
Uh,
good connections in the government. I don't.
It's over
It
150
really,
billion as of December 7th.
it's insane. It really
Here,
does not make.
let me find it again because I saw there was a headline today, at least
one
talking
thing
about
that
how
enough
much Jeff
people-
Bezos made.
That's one thing enough people don't talk about, especially with like the as like I don't know, I'm a pretty firm leftist, and I mean, a lot of people like on the left definitely do like. I mean, we're environmentally conscious, and yeah, like renewable energy is like a big deal, but like stuff like that where like yeah, Elon Musk is like, oh, electric cars, like we're trying to like help the environment, and like you hear that like in your developed nation, and like, oh yeah, awesome, that's cool, and then like no one talks about how like we ravage South America for lithium, or like
Yeah.
the Congo for cobalt, and like all these like other metals needed in the renewable energy industry. And it's just again like more unregulated capitalism, like ravaging these other parts of the world, taking their resources, paying them nothing, and yeah, like the threat of violence.
Yeah.
It's exactly, and
Uh,
it's the threat of like threat of violence, and it's the threat of like just infinite debt. Pretty much, the World Bank will give a country in Africa like a loan, and then when they're not able to pay it back, they'll be like, "That's fine. You can just give us your gold at like half the price." Stuff like that.
Jeff
Really is.
Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk increased their wealth by 217 billion this year.
I mean,
It's unfathomable. That's like what's so ridiculous about it. Or like, how is the stock market still at like an all-time high right now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
because they keep pumping money into it, right?
It's
Isn't that why?
Dude, the stock market's fucking imaginary. It has no like it has no basis on reality or anything. It's
It
just
doesn't.
like
It really doesn't.
rich people are like, "Hey, can we make something where we can just put money in it and it just makes more money?" We just say our money's worth more now, and it's like, yeah, we have all the power. We totally can do that.
Exactly. Like, cause people don't understand. Like, hyperinflation is only a reality to countries that have no connections to like global power. You know what I mean? Like, it only happens in Africa or like Greece or something. If it's America, we can make as much money as we want, because if you say we can't, we'll kill you. You know what I mean? Like, we killed Saddam Hussein for saying like he would not recognize the petrodollar. We'll just kill you. Like that's what makes the dollar worth anything. I mean, like we dropped our interest rate to 0%. You know what I mean? Like we do so much bullshit. Our money really isn't worth anything. We just say it's worth it. You know what I mean? So it is amazing. Like in June of 2020, we ran a $800 billion deficit, giving money to corporations. Just in that month,
Awesome.
$800 billion. And I think by the end of the year, it was 3.9 trillion on the year, like a $3.9 trillion deficit. And nobody said anything.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, I guess the deficit only matters when they're trying to do anything else with money. When the deficit matters with healthcare, with like,
it doesn't matter when I think the military budget at this point is $1 trillion a year. I think it was 700 last year. And I'm pretty sure it will just only go up just infinitely until the end of time.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying, cut down our military. Just cut off another. Like, that's just a lot of wasted money, I think. Like,
yeah.
we keep the same military strength with less money.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
fucking didn't, well, so many corporations, it all leads back to corporations because there's so much profit to be made in the military, and the
Exactly.
government will pay these corporations any amount of money, like they just make up the price, or what is it, like fucking $500 mugs and all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a big portion of like our military budget does like go to like it is spent on like not on like at home defense. It's a lot of like foreign occupation, and like yeah, it takes a lot of money to like have military bases on all of these countries. Like
Exactly.
that's
Oh,
I
I
mean
bet.
yeah, that's exactly why we need to like we could have like the world's craziest like at home like missile detection defense system. Like we could be like space age at home and still like drop our military spending just by like
Pulling out of countries,
leaving
huh?
these
Yeah.
other places.
Yeah.
No, but yeah,
Damn.
it's all about like expanding the American empire further and further, which is it's one thing that Michael Parenti talks about in some of his lectures, which is he makes the parallel between the U.S. and Rome in this way, which is like we're both bleeding the republic, like the people in the republic, to expand the empire like at its edges, right? Like we keep pumping money into the military so we can secure resources abroad at the expense of our healthcare or our whatever.
Our way of life,
Yeah, our entire lives. The idea of a free education that we're never actually gonna get because tuition just is gonna keep going up forever because that's another business that they seem to make a shit ton of money off
Oh
of.
my god.
Like, and it's a bunch of that. Even though, yeah, like what who really needs money is AFRICOM so that they can secure oil, like oil drilling operations in Africa. That's really what is needed right now, not domestic health care.
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
For
And-
sure.
I just want affordable health care. I mean, not just, I
Same.
want a lot of things.
I want
college too.
free
I want to be
healthcare.
able to get an education without getting in life debt.
Yeah, that's all I want. That's really all I want. I was getting in an argument with somebody earlier this week, and he like you signed up for the debt, like you should, like that's your responsibility. You signed up for. And he was like, when I was in school, I worked and I paid off my debt. And I was like, dude, when'd you go to school? And he was like, 1970. And I was like, bro, when you went to school, that shit was like $20, bro. It's like
Honestly, yeah.
every school here is like $10,000 a semester. Like it's not the same.
Even in the 90s, like my mom was able to work like I think like 30 hours a week at a restaurant and pay off her school because her parents didn't support her. And it's like in the 90s. But like,
Yeah.
you can't work. You work 60 hours a week at a restaurant and you can't fucking pay tuition.
Precisely, man.
Oh
It's
yeah,
crazy.
like working like what 15 to 20 hours a week during my time at university. Like I could pay off my rent, my utilities, but like and then like make small payments towards like the student loans I was taking out. And I mean, yeah, no, like you just can't be a full-time student and work a full-time job, let alone like pay for the tuition to like go to school. It's just not like there's not enough hours in the day, man. There's just not enough hours in the day.
There
really
is,
isn't.
and that's another reason why I am a communist, which is like there's certain shit I really just don't think human beings should have to pay for. I really don't think people should have to pay for housing. I really think that's just something people should have. I don't think people should have to pay for food. You know what I mean? Or water. I think people
At least
like
water, I agree with for sure.
Yeah, like people take for granted that we have to pay water bills every month.
All that
or
stuff. No,
energy
like
bills.
That's a human right.
Mavlov's
Yeah.
pyramid should be free.
Yeah, exactly. Maslow's hierarchies of needs. At least
what
the
is it?
bottom tier.
What are
Yeah,
the what? I haven't
Or
seen this.
sorry, I think it's the top. Or wait. Oh, sorry. No, you're right. Fuck. What is it? I was looking it up, and the pictures aren't what I thought it was. I thought it was like, it's okay. Yeah, sorry. The psychological needs. So it goes. You have. So it's a hierarchy. I can send a link of like the needs that every human being
curious.
has, and the bottom line of it is everyone needs food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep, air. And then the second one is safety and security is health, employment, property, family, social stability. Those two should be free. And then, yeah, like love and intimacy,
love and belonging,
self-esteem,
with safety and security.
self-actualization. You can't achieve those if you don't have the bottom. And that's the idea of the pyramid is like,
Yeah.
if you don't have food, water, shelter, you're not going to get to self-actualization or any of the other things. Like you can't have
Exactly.
good health if you don't have shelter, or
you could have your physiological needs but not have safety and security. Like you could be unemployed or not have any social stability at the time, like money troubles and stuff like that. Like that.
That's
also
the majority of America has neither of the bottom two.
So of course depression, mental illness is skyrocketing. Of course it is.
Yeah, and
no one's living to their fullest.
And I think like another thing that's like important to point out is these things wouldn't be free. You know what I mean? Like you look at our GDP, right, and a lot of the shit that goes into it. Our bosses, they don't make any money if we're not working. They make their money off of our labor by paying us less wages than what we make. You know what I mean? Like you work at McDonald's, you make you sell $500 in hamburgers or some shit in 2 hours, but they pay you $14 for those 2 hours, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. None of this shit is free. We're working for it. We just don't have control over what we're producing in value. And I think if we did have control over what we produce in value, we would say, yeah, just give people housing, just give people their basic needs. We can't do that in this model because everything has to be for a profit. And if it's not for a profit, then it can't happen. Everything has to have a paywall in front of it. Internet, water, housing, this, that, school, nothing can just be for human beings. It has to be for somebody to make money somewhere that isn't us.
Yeah. What was your political journey? Like, how did you, like, I guess, how long have you identified as communist, or, like, what got you there?
It started with that anarchist cookbook probably when I was 12, and just like my older cousin was anarchist, and like he started.
He's anarchist.
Yeah, he was an anarchist.
I can see where they come from at points, because I feel like a lot of times change has only been attained through violence. Like think the French Revolution and stuff like that.
Without doubt, I think my disagreement with anarchists always comes with, okay, after you burn everything down, how do you stop the elite from just taking back their shit again, right? Because they still control everything, right? You need a way to redistribute everything, and
that's kind of hard to pull off.
Yeah, but in general, I agree that like the hierarchy should be dismantled, and that's mostly anyway. But
I just wanted to quickly add, I think that's a big difference between if you move left or right. Like people who move right still like hierarchy.
Exactly. Yeah. And they still kind of attach worth to race and like ethnicity and things which is like the hierarchies can still exist only if people who look like me are the ones on top. Yeah. People who don't. That's.
But, it's so weird. It's just crazy that that's still such a big deal. But
yeah, I mean,
I hope we get there eventually.
I don't think I really I don't think we ever will, and I think
human nature.
I think because of the way liberal society kind of the way it uses identity, right? It's always gonna. It never really attaches identity with class, so right wingers never respected, right? Like liberals talk about tolerance and they talk about BLM only when it really suits them. Yeah. So I don't think right wingers will ever respect it in that context. And then in the other frame, like there is something to like appreciating your privilege. Like they do see privilege in their skin color and in their upbringing and what they had, and they don't want to let that go. in a lot of ways. From what I understand, I'm still myself trying to understand that entire kind of frame of mind and ideology, But
Yeah,
that's
it's weird to think about.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they I at least see the right side. They want to have class be a part of their personality or be a part of their identity too. And I think like class is a big part of your identity if you're like a right winger, I guess, is how I see it at least.
and they want like a return to tradition, right? Like they want a return to a time in their minds at least when things were better. And in that time there was very rigid distinctions between races, the roles of different races in society.
And yeah, and I think that also gets into gender a lot too, because there's a lot of misogyny there too, and like the role of a woman and
Yeah.
Yeah.
all that stuff. They really just want the
It's like-
50s.
They want the 50s or like shit like Puritan times. Like I've been
Oh yeah,
I've been watching that show like Handmaid's Tale, and I'm just like, this is what they want, huh? Like they just want like women to be completely subservient and
Stay
like black
home.
people and black people to just be like cooking for them and shit, and that's it. Like, it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. It really is.
It really
It's
is.
like,
they're good
like
at it,
woman,
dude. Their right's so much more like at least politically is so much more efficient at like
In
getting their
politics, yeah.
ideas. Yeah, like
because they have a backbone, dude.
Well,
It's-
I mean, it's just easy, and it's just so easy to like be like, "Hey, you're poor." Well, because of like the the idea of United States meritocracy, you can just hit them with the, "Oh, hey, they're poor because you want to be poor, and because you don't work hard, and because you don't want to put in the time and effort. That's why you're poor." Or
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, like they can just so easily like point to something like, "Oh, yep, it's a race thing. Oh, it's a gender thing." And
Yeah.
like for people on the left, like we understand that like the lines are, I mean, saying the lines are blurred is kind of bad, but it's just like, yeah, like gender and race like don't mean all these things, like those like don't have a say in a lot of these arguments. And so it's just like for them it's just like, nope, we have the answers, here they are. It's brown people, they're the ones causing all your problems. And then for us it's just like, no, it's the system, and like people like hoarding wealth and taking advantage of other people's, like monetizing other people's labor and time disproportionately. So
and I think the other thing that's in their favor, which is like I really don't think they're organized actually, because when I went to the Charlottesville like rally when it happened.
oh, you were there.
You went?
Oh yeah, because it's in my state, so I went to
Hell
just
yeah.
go see what the fuck was going on, and just looking at the right wingers, they weren't they weren't that cohesive at all. Actually, they were getting in a lot of infights about dumb shit, and they're super like macho, and one group has to be leading, and it's just a lot of bravado and shit. What they do have behind them is the fact that since they do support hierarchies, the state is going to support them in some way at some point, right? Like you look at Nazi Germany, there is a Ford plant and a General Electric plant there and an IBM plant there. Like U.S. corporations like the Nazis because there was still a strict hierarchy and they could still exploit somebody for their labor. You know what I mean? So what happens here is fascism is really just capitalism on steroids, and what it is capitalism but with force, and that's what capitalism kind of needs right now to sustain itself. A lot of the Proud Boys we see, they're in the police force. You know what I mean? Like they go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
they get a lot of backing from the state. They get a lot of funding from the state. I know that the whole Tea Party movement was astroturfed by the Koch brothers.
Yeah,
Like,
and I was literally about to mention the Cokes as like,
Yeah.
there's so much I guess capital behind it. There's so much money that can help support these people and push their political agenda or get them in positions of power.
Exactly. And on the other hand, there is nothing like that for the American left, and there never has been. You know, I mean,
No.
regardless of what they say about George Soros, like George Soros is just a Democratic insider, and we know the Democrats really aren't aligned with the left.
No, it's still neoliberalism.
yeah, it's still neoliberal garbage. So,
Yeah.
but what the left has had to face since the 20s is Red Scares, deportations, just mass persecution, anti-communism, like genocides all across the world in Indonesia and South America and Central America. That's what the left has to face. So if there really is not that support system from a powerful state, because the state understands that if the socialists and communists do take over, that's the end of this whole thing called class society.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They lose
that
their
makes a lot of
power,
sense. There's
yeah.
way more benefit in fighting the left than fighting the right, because, yeah, exactly what you said. Like fascism is just, yeah, capitalism on steroids, basically. But like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Because the Nazis were the people who invented the term privatization in the first place. They privatized most of their industry. They tore down labor unions. So shit, like American Enterprise was like, they're doing something right. The New York Times was like, hey, we like what this Hitler guy is doing. He's a plucky little upstart. You know what I mean? Let's go over there, see what he's up to.
Times Person of the Year, right?
Yeah. He was like he was a darling for a while. He was a
He
darling
was.
Until the
even
genocide.
Yeah, until after when they found out about the genocide. Throughout the war, a lot of these corporations even kept plants in Nazi Germany. Ford produced a truck for Nazi Germany at one point.
Oh my God.
Like a lot of stuff like that. And after the war ended, I know General Electric and I believe Ford sued the U.S. government for damage done to their property in Nazi Germany, and they won some money. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So
I have no words.
I did
The
not
amount
know that. Ford. Oh my God.
for that is like dude, you're so not moral in the fucking slightest.
no.
Oh my
is
lord,
GE
dude.
also like an old Rockefeller? Did that come from the Rockefeller also? Or what is it? I know like Chevron, what is it? There's like the majority of like oil and energy companies like came from when the Rockefeller was split up.
Oh yeah, Standard Oil kind of split up into Chevron and Shell and one other. Like they're pretty much all still around. You know what I mean? Those
Yeah.
three.
Oh, Exxon. They're
And-
ExxonMobil, Chevron. Yeah. Okay, I guess
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
not GE, but
yeah. But I think GE was backed by J.P. Morgan. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that.
yeah.
J.P.
Yeah.
Morgan, somebody. But
Fucking Chase.
yeah, a lot
God
of
damn it. Why do people bank with?
Chase.
Dude, I don't understand why anyone banks with banks. I guess, or like not like big banks, like profit bank. I don't know. I use a credit union, and I feel
Oh no,
bad about it.
I was like way too late for the credit union train, so I gotta hop on that once I pay off my credit card. Get in with a credit union.
Yeah, I'm part of Navy Federal Credit Union. It's way better.
I hear
Yeah,
they
man.
treat you so much better. Like,
Credit, yeah, dude. Because there's no like I feel like at like Chase or like my girlfriend's at Chase, and I give her a lot of shit for it. But whenever you go in there, it's just like they only care about you based on how much money you have with them. Like
Yeah.
but like at a credit union, it's like we're all it's the same, man. They're not there to profit off of me.
I mean, US banks actually treated me pretty well, honestly. Like I've had a few overdrafts. Like I've had like 10 overdrafts this year, and every single time they just fixed it for me because
Yeah.
I mean US banks pretty cool, at least to me. I don't know.
I think like bank the real the interesting thing about banks is compared to all the other industries in this country, they do the most flagrant shit, but they do it more often because they know if they fuck up, the
They've
government
got the
has
government.
to bail them.
They have to
Yeah.
bail them out. They have to
they
bail
have
them out. So the banks can just go willy nilly with anything because
Yeah.
if a bank collapses, which has happened before in American history, it's fucking bad. So the government will go into more debt just to keep it afloat.
Yeah, because like what they meant by it too big to fail was like every bank has a tie into every single other industry in this country, like a financial tie. So if they collapse, then everything else around it collapse. So they can't let it happen now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Otherwise, the entire private sector just caves in on itself at the same time, and
Yeah.
that's the apocalypse. That's the end of all this shit. and
It's
we're
the
I
end
can't
days.
wait.
it's gonna happen. It's coming up, man. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got that uncomfortable feeling. I swear, like
I'm trying to
end
get to New
times might
Zealand.
just happen.
I want to get to New Zealand. That's my goal.
I think the billionaires are already there with their bunkers.
Yeah, they are. They're all buying their bunkers in New Zealand, and I'm like, God damn
Yeah,
it.
That's actually happening.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
like a lot of billionaires are
Oh
buying
God,
bunkers in New Zealand for like the inevitable ecological collapse.
And like a lot of them, like I was reading this article from 2014 about this one millionaire talking about how the pitchforks are coming out for them soon, and we need to get the fuck out of here because they're gonna eat us alive because they see what we see, which is like you guys aren't gonna be able to pull off this bullshit for much
Indefinite
longer.
time, yeah.
Yeah. And even if people aren't completely sold on leftist ideas, they are sold on the idea that they have to eat. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think what pe- people saw like Walmart's getting looted and Target's getting looted as like a protest statement, when in reality it was just people needing shit, seeing an opportunity to get shit and getting, you know. And I think it's
yeah,
gonna happen with more regularity.
yeah, but of course, the writers gonna get pinned on, liberals,
Yeah.
libtards.
What's funny, the right has to create like a boogeyman in their head, otherwise their like ideology doesn't work anymore.
Falls
So
apart.
like it's Antifa or it's, I don't know, BLM or something, but like at the end of the day, they're the ones who like the Nashville guy blew up.
They're the ones who are voting against their own interests every day.
Yeah. Did you see the guy in Nashville who just like suicide bombed an entire
Yeah,
block?
I've been
Yeah,
following
following
that
it a
for
lot.
a while. For a while, it's insanity. And no one. We have zero. We have literally zero like reason why he did that.
Yo, the
Yeah.
worst thing is the fact that his fucking girl. Did you guys see that his girlfriend like had called the police about him building a bomb and they tried to get her institutionalized?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like she called the police like last year. She's like, my boyfriend's building a bomb, and they're like, no, he isn't. That's crazy. You should get you should get a psychological
No, he
evaluation. And
Dude,
then
but-
they fucking like they had a warning, like, but that's what happens with like a lot of school shootings too. Like someone calls in and they don't do anything. Like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
you can tell
Which
them
is
it's gonna
always-
happen and they don't care.
which is always amazing to me because like a Muslim kid could move into your neighborhood and the next day there's like a tap in their house or something,
Yo,
you know what I mean? Like there's a whole different level of discretion
oh yeah,
depending on who
if that guy was
exactly-
brown and his girlfriend called about him building a bomb, it'd be over for
He'd
him.
be in Guantanamo Bay right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'd be gone. It's this country really it's this country is turning into like a bigger caricature of itself than I was really anticipating. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, just
Oh, this year's so surreal. Or I guess last year was so surreal, and this year's gonna continue to be very surreal.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
last year was the prequel. Last year was the prequel.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's a little bit better, man. Just a
I
smidge.
I don't think it
We
will
just
be.
nudge it better.
I mean, coronavirus won't be.
Oh yeah, coronavirus won't be. I mean,
Unless
is Joe Biden better? We'll see.
Apparently, like what was funny to me was throughout this entire through the entire campaign cycle, they were selling this idea that Biden in some way an improvement, at least like temperamentally, to Trump or whatever. But in terms of policy, he's exactly the same, if not a little worse.
I'm a little yeah, I think
Yeah,
it could
Like-
definitely be worse. He's like,
it could be.
I don't know.
I mean,
It could go either
he,
way.
he,
Well,
had, he had that meeting with Wall Street, and he told them nothing will fundamentally change once I am in office. And he has somebody from J.P. Morgan on his cabinet. He didn't say he was going to ban fracking. He didn't say he's going to cancel student debt. He didn't say he's going to do a lockdown. He said he supported $2,000 a month, but
barely.
not really. Yeah, not really. Like
He was walking away and someone asked and he said, yeah. But he's not like campaigned for it. He said, yeah. Like, but that's not really like, if you're not doing anything about like, I can say yes. I can say that too, but that doesn't mean like, I'm going to fight for it. I mean, I guess that's
Exactly.
different. I mean, I would fight for it, but like, you get what I'm saying?
No, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's I think the scary thing about this Biden administration is that it is going to be another Obama repeat, which if I think at the end of 4 years of this, we're gonna see an even crazier right winger
I agree
hit
100%.
Oh yeah, because that's how it's always worked. It's a
He's-
goddamn pendulum.
he's
It
not
swings
gonna-
one way, swings another.
It's gonna be worse than Trump. He's just gonna do the same old shit and not improve anyone's material conditions by
Yeah.
any metric at all. And then people are gonna be like, "Well, fuck that." And, dude,
Yeah, fuck that.
the Democratic Party has to die, man. They both do, both of them.
You know, the duet. Yeah, I really
What was that?
don't. I don't think we're gonna be able to take over the party the way some progressives think they are gonna be able to the party. I don't think that's a real possibility.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you
Mm-mm.
about. I have written down. Like, how do you feel about a lot of the like progressive members? I think I know a little bit based on what I've seen on your Twitter, but like if you could,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I don't like hating on them too much just because people get mad at me.
Yeah.
But what kind of annoys me about it is, like, again, there's historical precedent to progressives trying to take over the party. You know, they did it in the 20s and the Democrats shut them down. Henry Wallace, they shut him down at the convention. He was pretty much Bernie, but 1940 or whatever year that FDR died. Progressives, they're high-minded, and they have a lot of, they're very idealistic in their ideas of how liberal democracy is supposed to work and their role in it. But the reality of the situation is every single one of our institutions has a fail-safe for people who think they can change it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, you go into DC, you don't change it, it changes you. And we're seeing that with a lot of progressives right now. You know, AOC is not talking the same way she was talking at the beginning of this. At the beginning of this, she was talking like, fuck it, if I'm here 1 year, that's fine, but I'm going to try to do everything I can in my power to help the working class and fight the establishment, blah, blah, blah. Now she's talking about strategy and strategic voting, and she's not going to vote against Pelosi, and we have to think long term, blah, blah, blah. And in another year, she'll just be another member of the Progressive Caucus. There's 95 members in the Progressive Caucus. If
What?
they all voted against Nancy Pelosi,
Wait, there's 95 members of the. I had no idea there was that
There's
many people that
95.
like. Wow.
That were actually
Yeah,
progressive.
they could stop Pelosi. She's.
They could.
Yo, I just want fucking term limits so bad for everybody. Just get the fucking
Yeah,
age
especially the Senate.
age caps, term
Especially the
limits. Fucking.
yeah.
It's crazy how much power McConnell has, even though I didn't vote for him in the slightest. But you know,
the crazy part about like the Republicans is really right now they don't have as much power as the Democrats are leading on, but the Democrats aren't paid to challenge Mitch McConnell. You know what I mean?
I think they
They're
will.
challenged every year to vote for the military budget and then make sure nothing else changes for the rest of the year.
They benefit from being complicit and acting like the Republicans are so scary and we can't do any like by pretending that there's no potential for a backbone, then they can get off easy without having one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obama had a supermajority for 2 years and did nothing at all. He passed Obamacare and DACA, and then that was it. You know what I mean?
You know, that shit's crazy. How like they don't legislate.
No.
Yeah.
And because they're not meant to legislate. They are advisors to the bourgeoisie and the elite, right? Like they are the figureheads of the plutocracy, and they're meant to keep things a certain way, keep everything status quo, and make sure nothing changes, but convince the general public that maybe next time, if you vote right, things may change.
Yeah, that's a decision that I've come to. That I'm done. Like I voted Democrat down ballot this election, but I'm done. I'm done voting for him.
Yeah, I mean, I voted Bernie in the Virginia Virginia primary, of course. But
Yeah.
there was when Obama came out like a few months before Super Tuesday and was like, if Bernie takes the lead, I'm gonna come out against him. I knew he wasn't bluffing. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Because he's the Democratic Mitch McConnell. Like he comes in if there's any issue with the establishment, like with somebody challenging the establishment. And Bernie was that guy. So that night before
Yeah.
Super Tuesday, he got Pete
Like,
Buttigieg named for the dropout.
Obama's an amazing Republican, dude.
Oh, he's amazing. Have you seen that clip? Have you seen that clip where he says it? Where he says, if I was in the '80s, I'd be considered a moderate Republican."
I don't think so, but
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he would admit it because that's how he acts. Like literally, like
Yeah.
if on paper, if his name wasn't Barack Obama, like, and you just showed what he did politically, like just policy wise, Republicans would fucking love it for all 8 years.
Yeah.
The Obamacare was a
but
Republican bill.
It's all about your. I don't know. It's not even
partisanship,
about
sports.
policy. It's not
Yeah.
policy.
But like
Nothing
literally,
comes
like
out of policy.
the fact that Obamacare was a Republican bill,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he helped bail out the banks instead of prosecuting those bastards. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and Obama killed so many people with drone strikes. It is insane. And
yeah,
some innocents were definitely involved in that.
he's what Fred Hampton talked about. When Fred Hampton talks about he talked about eventually there's gonna be Negro imperialism, which is like they're gonna put a black face at the front of this to make it seem all kosher, but it's not gonna be good at all. You know what I mean? And Obama is like the end stage of that.
Yeah.
He was, look, it's a black president. He's not gonna do anything different, but he's black. Look, so everybody starts to play. So
yeah, a lot of people do hook up to that. Like when my dad tries to show me some like proof of something, he's like, "Yo, watch this. She's a woman and she's black." I'm like, "How does that make it more?"
Yeah,
Republicans
why is
love
that bad?
identity politics.
She's sending me the same exact bullshit that a white guy on a far right podcast is, but because she's black and a woman, oh my goodness, that means it's true.
And that's like the liberal weaponization of identity I talk about, which is like it ignores the fact that it is like marginalized black and brown communities that struggle with a lot of the things Obama and people like Kamala Harris kind of advocated for their entire career. But it's the fact that they look like that got them the positions they were at. The fact that they look like that and they still support the status quo, which
is insanity. It's insanity that they still support status quo to me, man.
I mean, it's really easy when your pockets are being lined.
Yeah.
They're both lawyers. Lawyers know how to get promotion. You know what I mean? That's what they do.
Money just commands morals.
I hate being a lawyer so fucking much. That sounds awful.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Absolutely. That does not sound like fun.
Not my
deal. You just have to be morally corrupt. I mean, I guess like that's like, fuck, dude. Like I feel like, I mean, you just have to. I mean, there's so much like immorality to participate in this system in any way, but like
parts of me, I do kind of want to involve myself in like real world politics, but I feel like I would get so frustrated so fucking fast.
Yeah,
I don't have the patience for politics. Like if I was trying to like run for a position or something, I don't have the patience for it.
And that our political system is kind of built to it's built to make Americans apathetic, right? Like it's built to make people feel like nothing can change.
Nothing matters. My vote doesn't matter.
I mean, Kendall's roommate feels that way, like 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an L.
Yeah, that's an L.
It's because it is because like there is truth to that, right? But what they don't tell people is, the reason we have a minimum wage or the New Deal in the first place isn't because somebody voted for it. You know what I mean? It was direct action by workers during the early 20th century to force some of this shit to happen.
Oh, definitely.
It was the socialist and communist parties along with the labor unions forcing the shit down capitalist throats because they were fucking burning factories down and going on massive million, 3 million people strikes for
That's how you
resetting.
get change. That's legit how you get change. I don't know.
And that's I think that's probably what frustrates me about progressives, right? Which was like when this pandemic started, there was a point where like Bernie and AOC and this whole squad or whatever they fucking call themselves, they could have came out and been like, we're gonna organize a general strike here, right? Like we're gonna get together with a bunch of bigger mutual aids around the country. We're gonna get together with a bunch of labor unions that back us, and we're gonna force these people to listen to us. But they didn't. They endorsed Biden, and they just stood right behind the DNC
Status
establishment.
quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about India for a second? I don't know.
What's
Oh wow.
the deal with
Yeah.
India?
Yeah.
do you wanna-
250 million people.
Yeah, I'm not like super educated on it because like it was like barely covered by anything.
Yeah.
But there was like 250 something million people went on strike in India.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, and that's like like the pretty much the working class. Well, because in India, like it makes sense. It's about fucking time. They're still in a caste system,
Yeah.
which is like
Yeah.
ridiculous. But here, let me look up an article and see if I can find a little more about it. Yeah, 10 trade unions across the country, estimated around 250 million people took case in the strike. The demands were direct cash payments of $101 or 7,500 rupees, or equal to 101 US, per month to all families who are less than the income tax threshold. Free grain rations per person every month to all in need. Expansion of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act to provide employment for the current 100 days to 200 days work in rural areas with enhanced wages and extension in this program's urban areas. Withdrawal of all anti-worker labor code changes and liberalizing agriculture reforms seen by the protesters as anti-farmer laws. Stop privatization of public sector corporations, including those in the financial sector. Withdrawal the circular forced premature retirement of government and public sector employees, and then provide a pension to all, restore early pensions, and improve EPS 95. I don't know if they got anything from it or if it's still happening.
I mean, is it happening right now? Yeah.
I think it's still going on, right now, but
there's no coverage of it anywhere. Like because they don't want people don't want to know that you can actually strike.
Yeah, cause that's the thing. Like they can't have people knowing like this is an option. Because if people here, especially, start to realize like, hey, why don't we do this? Then Jeff Bezos is fucked. Like all these people are fucked if their workers really start to go on strike the way they are in.
Imagine
like
if the Amazon distribution centers, if even a third of the employees went on strike, dude, Amazon would fall apart.
Bro,
Yeah, I like to think about that sometimes. What if everyone at Amazon just stopped?
You know, they were planning. They've been planning it for a while, and then Jeff Bezos hired some Pinkertons, like some old school Pinkertons to watch workers to make sure they didn't unionize. Like
it's so not surprising, but it's this shit's literally like satire.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fucking Pinkertons.
History,
is
man.
what gets me. That is, they've never left.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who said the quote, but like history repeats itself. First is tragedy, and then is farce. So like this is just a joke at this point. I don't know, but like yeah, that's kind of my issue with electoral politics, which is even when some big reform is able to get passed, right? Like it was with the New Deal. What happens is since the rich still have their money, they use that money to influence the system in a way where they tear down those reforms once again to the point where we're at now, which is like we're back at the Gilded. Yeah. So yeah. I really do believe system change is the only permanent way to improve worker conditions. It's weird, right? So in August I was working at a warehouse, and I'd gotten to the point where it was ridiculous. It's like 40-year-old men there. They're all complaining about how they don't get paid enough, like every fucking day. And I was just talking to him. I was like, you guys are senior members of staff. You guys have like the ear of everybody of staff. Why don't you just
Yeah.
go talk to everybody? Let's get together. I'll draft something and we can go to management and we can get you guys because you guys have been fucking talking about it. I didn't think they were gonna do it, but they came back to me and we started planning. It took a couple weeks or something, but we got everybody on board, and we were about to go to management. And one day after work, my supervisor calls me in and he says, "We're gonna have to let you go. Somebody said you've been harassing them or something, some bullshit like that." It wasn't true, but I was only
some reason to get rid of you.
Yeah, just they're like, just get the fuck out of here. So
yeah,
I left, and the hard thing about labor organizing in the U.S. is there are no workers' rights, and especially with right to work laws, like unions aren't even allowed in my state, really. So employers have way more rights, but at the same time, if we just need more people to be aware of the fact that if our collective labor is powerful enough to make real change happen, and if we can do that on a big enough scale, maybe we could actually get some of this shit through. Maybe we wouldn't have to call our senators up and be like, "Can you please give us $2,000?
Can you please?
Literally
You know what I
calling
mean?
Please,
the bank,
buddy.
Right? We could maybe just be like, "Hey, you're gonna give us $2,000,
We'll
or
fucking vote you out.
you're gonna shut down
I think
the
it's just insane to me that we have to ask. Oh my god.
It's ridiculous, and it's even more ridiculous that they don't have to listen to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's even they don't have to risk like Mitch McConnell doesn't have to do jack shit. He doesn't give a fuck.
No. And all Nancy Pelosi has to do is be like, "Oh man, Mitch,
Oh,
you
bummer.
Yeah, both sides
Damn
just
it.
scapegoat on each other.
Bummer. Yeah.
It's an excellent system in making nothing happen. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
That
your
expert.
Yeah.
Nothing really
like
changes.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm disappointed in the squad. I mean, I don't really expect anything from politicians at all, but it really does sound at least like AOC and Ilhan Omar would be different. But look, I know DC. You know what I mean? Like, when you drive into DC for the first time, when I drove in when I moved to Northern Virginia, it was crazy. Like, you see the Washington Monument, you see the Lincoln Memorial, you see Capitol Hill. You're like, Jesus Christ, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine if you work there, it's a whole different experience. And over time, it reforms you,
Yeah.
and it forces you to play its game. And that's why I never really expect too much from these politicians to really get something accomplished. Which is why, like, I wish the left would stop wasting so much time on it.
Yeah.
I wish we would try to like mount something like they're doing in India and have like a quarter of the population go on strike all at
Yeah.
once. Because
That would scare the fuck out of people who owned any corporation that was getting like a strike. If like all your workforce is gone, that would scare the fuck out of you.
They would have to listen. Like, that's the thing. At that point, there is no just vote or whatever, and maybe you'll get it. It's
no, I think Americans just suck at protesting.
Yeah,
I-
organizing, and there's
suck
so much
ass
stigma
at-
around it, and also like I think another problem like towards like the like what you were talking about, Mike, about trying to like these people that deserve to get paid better and them fighting for, like, there's so much stigma around talking about how much you're paid.
Yeah.
And, like, just financials in general. There's so much stigma around talking about your financial situation at all, and like I think people should be open
Yeah.
about it, because then you can understand like that people are treated differently, and that there's things you can do about it, and if you talk about it and understand the situation you're in, and then like find out how much your fucking boss makes, Yeah.
It's definitely been put there in place because like you feel like if you say like how much you're making, you could get shamed or like all kinds of weird stuff. I feel like in some ways our generation right now is actually moving away from that. I don't know, at least in my friend circles, and even like with my coworkers, I talk about how much you get paid. fairly easily.
I don't give a shit, but like when I was working at a server and I counted my tips and I was like doing it in the back and they're like, no, don't do that in front of the kitchen. They'll see how much money you make. I'm like, they should.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't
Yeah.
even know that. Holy shit.
Yeah, because the kitchen doesn't get paid as well. They don't get any tip. So like when I'm counting like the money at the end of the night, and it's not even tip money. Like I have to give some of it back to the restaurant, but like they didn't.
Yeah.
Like other people were like, hey, don't let the kitchen staff see like how much money you're counting right there. 'Cause they'll realize that the restaurant's making more money than they're getting paid and shit like that.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
But I really do. The thing that does inspire hope in me is like that it does seem like our generation understands a lot of this shit a lot sooner than previous ones. You know what I mean? Like
Definitely.
most people I talk to have a general idea of how the system works. The
Yeah,
general direction.
people have been like inspired to stay informed.
Yeah, I think we're way more politically
I feel.
engaged and aware of like the situations versus like I think it. Well, I mean, it's easier. It's harder to not be now. Like I think in the past, like it was pretty easy to just like not care about politics at all
Ignore
because it wasn't quite as bad as it is now. I mean, it was like on its way, but it wasn't quite as bad. But like now, like it's really hard to ignore.
Yeah.
That's how like my household was last year though. Like there were like people. I mean, see, all people like in their early 20s, and that's it was a lot of like, oh yeah, like I don't care, like I don't have time for politics, and I'm like, you have student loan debt, you're a full-time student, you're working a job to pay for things, you complain about rent like I do, you should care. Like why aren't you caring about this?
Yeah, like you can make change. Like if you get enough people, like there is possibility, I think, for change in America. There's avenues.
I think the big question now, which is what like I've been asking, is will we be able to organize, and are there enough people who are committed to taking this to maybe its logical conclusion, which would be like an armed resistance or a real like revolutionary struggle against
People don't want that though at the end of the day versus like anything else because it's uncomfortable and
it's uncomfortable.
it destabilizes your life.
But the next, in my opinion, the next step of what's gonna happen is capitalism is gonna die, and then we're gonna have this next iteration of class society that's gonna be much more brutal than the one we see now. We already saw with Proposition 22 that they're gonna be able to reclassify workers as independent contractors, so they don't have the same rights as workers, which means at some point all workers will be gig workers, which means they're not going to have a fixed wage. They're just kind of going to be servants doing like odd jobs here and there.
You're coming under pressure clearly where you are in California.
And at that point, we're just going to be kind of fighting for survival. So if we don't take control of our situation now as the working class to serve our own interests, then the capitalists will find the next stage of this, and it's not going to be great for us, I believe.
Yeah.
That's super true.
No,
yeah.
Absolutely not.
It's only going to get harder to change things as time progresses.
Yeah. It's I really hope something's gonna happen. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of, especially like the leftist movements of the 70s and 60s, like the anti-war stuff.
Yeah, I remember that stuff.
Yeah, like it was a lot of young kids like us, and some of them even got killed on college campuses. You know what I mean? And then they went from being anti-war to like voting for Reagan. You know what I mean?
I still can't believe the fucking Reagan election map on his re-election is.
Wait, what is it?
Every
Mike,
state,
can you
I
find
think
that?
there was one state that didn't vote for Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. It was
Really?
Yeah, it was one.
Are you kidding me?
I don't remember which state it was.
Those are the same people who were
What the?
on college campuses against, you know.
It was two states. One state.
Yeah,
you are
no,
right.
just Minnesota and DC. Every other state went for Reagan.
Yeah.
No way.
So that my concern is like people get older and they start leaning right. You know what I mean?
They
But I
start
mean,
leaning kind of
can
selfishly.
that? But like, I feel like a lot of that also has to do with like in that era, like in like the 80s and stuff. Like people could be doing financially pretty good, but like, are people in our generation gonna lean further right if they're still like fucking like 35 or 40 or 50 and still paying rent, working a dead end job? Like,
I really don't. I don't think so anymore. That's why I'm saying like I see some hope in our generation because we don't own anything, bro. Like we are
Yeah.
outside. There is
I've
no
got
future.
Jack.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got jack shit. So if we don't figure out how to make this shit work for us, then yeah, no one's gonna come save us. No one's
We've
gonna come
definitely
save
gotten the
us.
worst of it so far. We gotta fix it ourselves. I don't know if we can.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
just
know.
hope we have like I think a lot of us are in kind of a rush, right? Which makes sense, but at the same time, I don't know. The Bernie campaign was like a watershed moment in American politics. It was the biggest grassroots movement in the history of this country, and it kind of brought the entire left together, which
yeah.
I had never
It
seen.
really did.
I never thought was possible. You know what I mean?
But DNC kind of fucked us with that, didn't they?
Well, yeah, and what happened after that point was like a complete fracturing of the left into what we're kind of seeing now, which is a lot of sectarianism. But if we are able to organize again like we were with the Bernie campaign, but this time instead of electoralism, focusing on direct action, focusing on protests and things like that, which is why I'm a part of the PSL, which does a lot of great like direct action work across the country, from Denver to Austin to DC. Like we've been in every single BLM protest since June, doing
Yeah.
outreach and things like
I
that.
should look into that then. We're all in the Denver area, so
Yeah, it's crazy because in Denver, two PSO organizers got arrested on like some bogus charges for protesting, and they're facing like I believe 20 years apiece right now. They're fighting those charges. They
Huh.
they're
wow.
they're attack they're the PSL is gaining steam, and I think people in power are starting to see that, because if the left is able to coalesce into a real like popular front the same way they were with the Bernie campaign, we could really make something happen. I think what really hurt the labor movement after the 40s was the AFL-CIO like divorcing themselves from the Communist Party and kicking a lot of communists and socialists from their ranks, because at the end of the day, socialist and communist interests are aligned with labor interests. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Without that influence in labor unions, they were much easier to be broken down, to the point now, which is like I think it's like 10% labor involvement across the country when it used to be 50
Wow.
or something like that, and that needs to be rebuilt. We need many more leftists in positions in labor unions and in unions doing organizing, which is why I'm also a part of the
Yeah, but there's a
IWW.
big war against unions right now. I mean, I don't see anybody argue against unions, but of course corporations are going on. Like, Amazon's the best example,
Yeah.
There's been so many attempts to start unions there
Mhm.
that come to mind at least the last 4 years.
Yeah. Which is why like there needs to be like a different approach to how we tackle labor organizing, which is what we're talking about a lot right now in the IWW, which is like how do we go forward in this, especially considering we're not a manufacturing country. We're mostly we're a lot of restaurants, we're a lot of retail, but
Yeah,
we're
not a whole
too
lot of
much.
products though.
Yeah, not too many commodities being produced, which means we have to reframe the way we think about organizing.
Yeah.
But the work is being done right now, which is again like all I can really ask for. The other thing I ask for is just more leftists to look into joining different organizations.
Yeah. Well,
Whether it's
send me
Go
links
ahead.
to organizations, and I'll put them in the description and stuff.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Sweet.
Let me send you. I'll send a PSL.
And for me personally, because I'm not involved in any, and I need to.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's the DSA, you know, the DSA is doing good work right now too. Even though I disagree with a lot of their tactics, I appreciate what they're doing. The Socialist Rifle Association, the John Brown Gun Club, the Huey Newton. I mean, there's a lot of really great organizations that I can talk about, but what we really need right now is people to join them, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of leftists think there is nothing out there for them, when there's a lot. There's a lot, and it doesn't have to be one thing. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be one organization that you have to join. Just look for something you appreciate, and look for something that kind of aligns with what you value as a leftist, and just look into it. You know, look into it, because if we can build our numbers in that regard, we can turn into a really powerful political force in this country for good. And if we're able to get back into the labor unions, then bro, we're fucking golden. We can do whatever the fuck we want once we get back into the union. You know what I mean? And we get people to sign up for unions. I mean, I know there is a war against unions right now, and it's been going on for decades. But
Yeah.
you can't argue with numbers, right? Like, fear is one thing, but if you get enough people to start signing up, you really can't argue with it. You know, it doesn't have to be official union like membership. It can just be somebody at their workplace, like I was doing at the warehouse, talking to your coworkers about your ideology, about organizing, about maybe, hey, let's talk to the boss about maybe a pay raise, or about having more control over the workplace, like my friend in Richmond was able to do with his restaurant. Now in their restaurant, they take votes on what happened. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so
Curious.
I have a friend, Phil, who I did my other podcast. He's in Richmond. He's a line cook down in Richmond, and I used to work there actually. When the pandemic hit, the business owner didn't know what the fuck to do, right? Because people had to leave because they were getting sick, and the guy who owns the restaurant doesn't really understand that much about the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Right. So he was kind of clueless, and Phil and I would talk about it on the podcast, and he knew what I was doing with my warehouse thing, and he talked to the owner and said, look, you obviously don't know what the fuck you're doing, because owners usually don't know what the fuck they're doing ever. You know, they just own the place, but usually the staff understands how it runs better than. So he's like, let us decide our schedules, decide who does what, so this thing can run better, like, under these conditions. And the owner agreed. You know what I mean? Because owners are not adaptable. They know how to they know that they like money, right? But they don't know how to organize a workplace. Workers know how to organize a workplace under like difficult conditions, because they have to do it all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening now. So they make decisions on their schedules. They make decisions on, like, if one person quit, and they split up the pay between everybody in the restaurant, because more people had to take like more responsibilities.
Wow.
Everyone got paid more. So it's just stuff like that, and that really, to see that happen, it was like, wow, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But
like
that can happen more. That can happen a lot more, and especially from what I'm seeing from our generation, we seem to be like some very crazy, very fuck you, fuck you, motherfucker. So we can make this happen. We just have to start talking to people and start making it known that this is what we believe, and this is.
Yeah, because we all have. I think everyone on this podcast has a lot of restaurant experience, and that sounds bonkers to me. Like the idea of that happening. It sounds
really
fucking
does.
amazing and bonkers. Like I cannot imagine. Like we worked at or me and Kyle at least worked at a restaurant together, and it was like part of a bigger, like this dude, like it was his first restaurant, but I think he owns like 20 or 30 now under like this big corporation. And it just like seeing like, yeah, just like the disconnect between the owner and the workers, and he has no idea how it
Exactly.
runs and making terrible decisions for the company. And just like,
Exactly.
that's how it was. And then it just, I mean, the fucking restaurant closed like last month because it couldn't handle the pandemic.
Exactly. And I think that's
Mhm.
the one thing about this pandemic is that it's forcing people to adapt to conditions they're not used to. And that that's happened before, right? It happened with the plague,
Yeah.
right? Like the economic model at that point could not handle the fact that so many people were dying at the same time. And because of that, like specific artisans and merchants and craftsmen started gaining more power over what they were producing. They were the only, like, if you made a fucking chair before and you worked on a feudal manor, all of a sudden you were the only person within like 500 miles who could make a chair. Everybody else, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that created like a new reality for the people there, and this is creating a new reality for capital, and it's similar. It's similar in two ways, right? And during the plague, feudalism became like it got replaced. Before, it was small feudal manors that were loosely connected, and there weren't really any powerful kings in the way there would be going forward with the absolute monarchy. But those absolute monarchies had to come to power because these specific lords couldn't really handle what was happening to them in terms of serfs leaving and dying and not being able to manage resources. So it had to become a lot more centralized. And that's what we're seeing today with capitalism, I think, which is these corporations who before were all about, get the government the fuck out of here. Don't tell me what to do. Let's put back on regulation. We want all the control now. If it wasn't for the Federal Reserve printing cash for them, they would all be bankrupt,
Mhm.
So capitalism is becoming pretty centralized. And this is kind of what happened at the end of class society. Yeah, I think we're just seeing a evolutionary moment in our system. It's just gonna be. It's both very terrifying and interesting.
Hopeful.
to see where this
It could be
goes.
hopeful. Yeah, but I don't know.
But Mike, I have a question for you regarding like the whole like disorganization with the left. I'm doing like a big video essay on this topic, and I was just wondering what your thoughts were on like how do you align left-leaning groups who differ on like those weird in the ground or like in between issues like the Second Amendment. How do you like reach out and like connect? Because like you mentioned groups like the Huey Newton Gun Club and stuff like that, and like there's a lot of these organizations that do a lot of like leftist work, especially stuff connecting with labor unions. So like, but there are a lot of people who like I guess would view themselves as on the left or leaning left, but who have like really like hard lines when it comes to like gun control and the Second Amendment, just because of like the gun problem that exists in the U.S. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I understand. I don't think it's as important as some people make it out to be, right? I think there's something to be said about differences on what you think about the Second Amendment. I don't agree with gun control necessarily, but I know that what I do agree upon is people having control over their conditions in life. And I know that's what other leftists believe in as well. I know we're all on the same page in terms of workers' rights and worker control and the general class struggle. I think a lot of the more like granular issues can be discussed, but we shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture, which is fighting for the betterment of working class life. I think we should really hone in and focus on that. My personal view on gun control is that I do think at some point, if I do think at some point we're gonna have to, there is gonna be some sort of armed resistance. I would much prefer the working class to understand how to use arms, at least in defense of themselves. People who disagree, I understand that, but that is not really a spot. That's not really a topic that I think causes enough debate for me to be like, oh, fuck you, or oh, I'm not gonna work with you in bigger, maybe mutual aid causes or bigger organizing just because of that one thing. I mean, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks had a lot of disagreements that came to a head in 1917, and they would still work together to get the Russian Revolution done. You know what I mean? Like there's disagreements all the time between leftist organizations. As long as we keep our eyes on the main goal, which is class struggle, I think that's where we need to be. That
Hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree.
but
And do you believe, on like a similar note, you mentioned it. Do you believe that like the difference, like the class differences, like separate people like more, like I mean, more than like other sorts of I don't know, like race, gender, sexuality, like the class or like disability, like do you believe that like class is a much more like you like for me, I identify a lot more with people who are in my similar like class. And so whenever people ask me like, oh, do you think similarly to like other people of the same race or like men, for me it's like no, my bigger connection is with people who have like are in the same like socioeconomic like area as me. And I
yeah.
think that's like a much bigger like barrier for people. Like what are your thoughts on that?
I agree and I disagree, right? So the thing about intersectionality is that you look at America, it's a very different environment. There's a lot of diversity ethnically and religiously and all these things, but at the end of the day, a lot of the oppressive institutions that we assign with race are aligned with class, right? So I think to understand one, you have to understand the other. You know,
Agreed.
if you look at redlining, right? The redlining of black communities, that is both a racial and a class issue, right? The deprivement of investment in black communities and the funneling of it into richer communities. And I think there is something to be said about that. The other thing I want to press on is that I do think class unites us more than race divides us. You know,
Okay.
people working class people understand working class, regardless of where you are or what your political alignment might be. You know, poor people understand what poor people live like.
Exactly.
I know what poor people in Georgia live like because I was a poor person in Georgia. You know what I mean? White, black, it didn't matter. We all live the same. We all had the same. So I think it is really important to press on the fact that we are more alike than different when it comes to our identity because class is the superstructure that everything else is decided.
I agree with that.
And but yeah, I think it's important to understand where race fits into that in our context because a lot of the oppressive systems we see are directly attached to race as well. So I think it's just important to understand. not neglect anybody's struggle at the same time, whether that be black, white, or trans, gay, straight. It really does not matter. We have to look at it all because it all has a tie into capitalism and exploitation.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
understanding intersectionality is super important. I think you did a really good job of explaining that.
Yeah, I think there's a big debate I see going on about that, like class reductionism, whatever. And I just think I understand where class reductionists come from, like this idea that race doesn't matter at all, identity doesn't matter at all. It's all about class. I understand where that comes from if we aren't in an American context, but we are in an American context where Black people have had to face kind of some of the most brutal marginalization of any group in like the history of the fucking world.
Can't just erase that. Yeah.
Yeah, like hereditary slavery was a thing that did not exist up until the U.S. was conceived about. You know what I mean? Like generations of people born into slavery, not knowing really where they came from, and used to build this country from the ground up. I don't think America would have made it past its infancy if it wasn't for the free labor they extracted from Black people. You know what I mean? And that is both a class issue and a race issue. And you have to understand both aspects of that if you're going to understand how you're going to attack some of these institutions and dismantle.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But guys, I have to go to bed.
Yeah, we normally wrap at the 2-hour mark, so we hit 2:06, so it's perfect.
Yeah, perfect
really?
timing, huh?
Yeah. This is like perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a blast.
Hey, man.
I'd
It
love
was
to have
nice
you
to
on
meet
again
you.
sometime.
Hey, for real, I really appreciate y'all. You guys have beautiful minds. I'd love to come back on here and shop.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
You're
definitely. I love you. Fucking send us any links to stuff I'll put in the description.
Oh, for sure. We made sure to throw at least your Twitter up on the stream, so.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on.
No doubt. Let me know for real.
You got it, man. Yeah, you're allowed back on anytime.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Have a good night, man. All right.
Have a nice too, man.
Episode 11 of
11.
AllChatPod. Thank you.
Peace.